Welcome to the Lisa Show's Book Club. This is the first time we've done this with our series on body image, and I'm really excited about the book that we're reading, More Than a Body. Your Body is an Instrument, Not an Ornament, by Lindsay Kite and Lexie Kite, PhDs. And with us for this second episode of our book club is Kacy Faulkner.
Yes,
Introduce
hello.
yourself,
My name
Kacy.
is Kacy, and I love to read. So I am extremely qualified to talk about books.
Extremely qualified.
Yes.
Well, and you're friend of the Lisa Show.
Friend of the pod.
Yeah.
Teach writing. You gave me 100 books for my birthday, so obviously I'm an expert.
Yeah. On all things book. We couldn't have a book club without inviting Kacy on. And I really liked our first episode and kind of where we left off in the first chapter, because we're continuing the first chapter in More Than a Body, at this idea of what our bodies can do, but how we're all kind of bonded together in this weird
negativity.
hate of our bodies.
And
like that's
again,
what
it's
bonds
just
women
normal.
together. And it's just normal, and that's our baseline.
And many industries are making money off of this. Like another thing that kind of made
We
me,
haven't talked about that.
Yeah,
yet.
that like the beauty industry, all this stuff, like someone is gaining from all of our insecurities.
Yeah.
You know? So that's something too to think about. Sort of made me mad when I was reading this. I was like, oh yeah.
And another
I go to
thing.
Target and buy a bunch of stuff when
Yeah.
I feel like I'm wrinkly and old.
But maybe that's just
They
how
want
my
me to
body's
feel that
changing.
way.
Yes,
Yeah.
And
So
to hold
it's-
off the aging process. That's something that I fall prey to.
Yeah. So, but people are making money off of that, which
Yeah,
is
they
too
are.
bad. But oh well, that's life, right?
Right.
See, again, here we just think it's normal.
Well, it is. And something that I thought was really interesting on page 17, it said, when the same ideas of attractiveness are shared so widely and at such an incredible scale, social media everywhere across the globe, it is no surprise that they shape our own body goals and preferences. And this is something that I worry about for my kids. We were having this conversation with my daughter, and we were talking about how she's like, am I going to get taller? When am I going to, when am I going to get more curves? When am I going to da-da-da-da-da? And I realized that she was talking about like a beauty standard that is popular now that wasn't when you and I were her age. And so we had this conversation about how it's really weird that body types, just what your genes say your body's going to look like nothing's going to make me suddenly 6 feet, right? Even though that might be, or have a long torso, or, what else is, and long legs, which is, this same one idea of what beauty is. And I guess I hadn't realized until I was reading in this because I thought, in different cultures and in different communities, there must be just like different body attractiveness ideals. And then when you look at the research that they did, and in this book, you realize, oh no, because it's so widely accepted, we all sort of have the same thing, and which is crazy.
Yeah, because of like
Around the world, we're all going to look the same. Like we have the same beauty ideal. That is
weird.
That's weird.
That's a problem. Yeah. And one thing I was thinking of is I was reading this, and you probably view it this way too. There's like, as me, and like my issues and whatever, but then also as my daughters, you know. And I'm just like so much better about it with my daughters, because you're like want to empower them and all of that. But then like, I'm still thinking, I don't want to go swimming. So it's kind of
But if
interesting.
your daughter
There's like
said
always
that,
this,
you'd be like,
you'd know what
absolutely
to
not.
say and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so it's interesting because they do say you can't just make page 28, the objectification of women, including yourself, just go away.
Yeah.
Like you can't just be like, yes, I'm empowered.
Yep.
You still feel that way. So I'm excited as they get into the chapters of like things that you do to stop feeling that way.
Yeah.
Like to honestly stop. I know what to say. I'm trying to teach my girl. I think I've read and thought enough about it and lived before social media that I do have some strategies. I don't know. I haven't like solved this problem, but I have tried to be more aware about things with my daughters,
Right.
But yeah, I don't know how to like actually not feel that way.
Well, and isn't it so freeing too when they say, oh, no matter how resilient and empowered you are, The reality is that discrimination, bias, prejudice, culturally ingrained expectations of people, especially women, and especially of women of color, still exist. So, because sometimes I'll think, I know better than to have this thought about my body, or I know better than to do this or say that to myself. And I'll think, why am I not more resilient? Why am I not more mentally strong? And kind of, again, beat up on myself. As
it's the
if
same old
I
thing.
created
if you
this
had
situation.
more discipline, you do this and that. It's like, why am I not more mentally strong? Yeah, it's like it's always on you. That's
and
the whole
that is
problem.
the message of our diet-obsessed culture, which is if you were disciplined enough,
you had
then you could
self-control and you
be
could
perfect.
stop eating sugar and blah, blah, blah. And now it's like, well, if you were a real feminist and you could stop being so vain and you could blah, blah.
Yes.
So I was glad that they like articulated that.
Yeah.
And they're also saying how to feel better in a world that like, let's change the world. That's great. We'll work on that at one level. But how are you going to feel better in this same world? So yeah, I can't wait for them to tell me.
What did you think about the part towards the end of the chapter about shame and how like the sheer number of teenage girls when they interviewed them for their research about like cutting and self-harm and how it skews female and how
it's so horrible. It's so
to
horrible.
me it just that part broke
and it broke
my
heart. And I so it's like there's 3 levels of this. The real serious shame, and it leads to thoughts of harming yourself and how that's how you cope. And then the other one is something like just, what do they call it? Clinging to your comfort zone.
Yeah, your comfort zone.
Trying to like buy things and trying to, and I'm like, I felt glad that that's where I am.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't really, I remember feelings of shame like around PE and being in swimming, self-consciousness, but I really was lucky. I don't know that my mom did this on purpose, but I don't think she ever, not one time, actually, there was one time, and I remember it, she ever said anything negative about my appearance, ever. Wow. She never talked about my weight. She never said anything, ever. Now, she talked about her weight, but never. I know my mom never talked negatively about my body. She just was so perfect. I don't know that it was just so natural. I sometimes see people, where they have a lot of baggage from how their parents.
Well, a lot of people were constantly
obsessed with it. Yeah.
Why are you eating that? What are you doing?
Yeah, and so I feel really lucky. I was self-conscious enough, just in and of myself. I will tell you that one time that I remember, and I remember it because it was only one time.
Your mom will love this.
Is that I
you remember the one time?
I had long hair, and I used to put my bangs up in a barrette. And so they were just like this. And I remember one day she said that I looked like a peeled onion.
You can't even say it?
Peeled onion.
A peeled onion?
Yeah. She said, like, she wanted me to have, like, more curl. This was the 80s, like.
Yeah.
So, like, she always wanted me to have wisps around my head. Well, she always thought that was cute when I did have that. And then one time I just had it all pulled back. She's like, you look like a peeled onion. Why don't you have some come down around your face? I've remembered that for 30 years.
That's so funny. Okay.
That's the only negative thing she's ever said. So I feel really lucky. And I think that's helpful. I don't
do you
have
think that is... I mean, because I wouldn't consider that body shame, but maybe it is. Or it's just about your appearance.
Oh, yeah. Hair,
but it's preference,
face,
right?
skin,
so maybe
weight.
I just have a different
we
definition.
think about it a lot of about weight now, but I remember, and these guys talked about it too. I think these guys must be younger than me, but they were talking about white legs.
Yes.
And not wanting to wear shorts because you felt like your legs were white.
I felt that way.
And that
I remember
was a huge
thinking
thing,
like
being tan, having an acne and clear skin, and of course weight. But even but now you're right. Our daughters are like shapes of things and thinness of limbs and things like that you can't control. Yeah, it's always really weird the things it includes.
I know, and it's hard to sort of make sense of where it comes from, like the chicken or the egg kind of thing of who perpetuates it. The whiteness of the legs was always
like
made
pale
me
skin,
very uncomfortable. And it was funny because I was talking to my daughter who is on a church mission in El Salvador, and she was saying that everybody in her whole village, in her whole town, and even her companions, they just call her pale. Like a nickname. The nickname, she was telling us what it was in Spanish, and she says basically it just says, hey, you, the pale one. She's like, because here it'll be like, oh, that's the fat one, that's the tall one, that's the da-da-da one. I mean, they just call it out. And I was a little taken back, and she's like, and I'm the pale one. Always. She's like, no matter where I go, even to strangers. And I thought, isn't that interesting that, again, we might think that it's, and I wouldn't have thought about this had I not like considered what their research was saying. I would have just thought, oh, that's just a preference or like a characteristic. But it really does go to something deeper of like what our beauty standard is. Like we all have this sort of unexpressed of like, oh yeah, we're all supposed to look like this in some way.
Yeah.
It's kind of devastating.
It is kind of devastating.
Because sometimes you're in style and sometimes you're not. And sometimes you hit it.
You can't always control it.
You can't. I don't know how you can.
Yeah, that's true.
What did you think about the like the section that was talking about like that whole idea of like shame with resilience, like
oh yeah, so that was the last thing. So it's
yeah,
like
what
shame,
did you think about
and
that?
just kind of dealing with it and being embarrassed, but working on it, and then resilience, which I think I have had some epiphanies after having children, and when you realize just you're out of control and don't even try, like as far as your body, we're just doing our best, or you get a debilitating disease, or you know, whatever. You have these realizations that some of these other things don't matter. But then of course you're still like on social media, like everyone else seems to be like pulling it together.
It does seem like everybody else.
It kind of undermines some of this work that I've done reframing and like feeling better. So it's like constantly undermining that. And so I think I've moved into that, but I don't think I have resilience, because like we talked last time about how I still sometimes I catch a glimpse of myself and I just think, ugh. But I don't become obsessive and think I want to not look like that on the grocery store camera. Right. I'm just in the place where I'm like, I'm not going to look at it.
So
I want to avoid it. So I'm not into resilience,
right?
But I'm not into like obsessive compulsive.
Yeah, but I like how it's like I keep saying this, but like it's not our fault. Like
yeah, we want to be relieved from this burden.
It like this constant objectification, and that's why the title is so great, More Than a Body, because it's acknowledging not only that our bodies are, an instrument and not an object, but it's acknowledging that we have to say that out loud.
Yeah.
Like that it's not just all about our physical appearance, that there's much more to a person.
You have to think about
that.
it,
You
and
have to think, you can't take it for granted.
Because everything else is undermining that. So it won't get equal. Even though I thought, okay, I had that realization when I was like, whatever. You can't just have it once and be like done. Because all this other stuff is always, and remember this, I guess, with kids too, is that all that other stuff, in order to give equal time to like the negative voices and maybe the one positive, epiphany that I had, I think I have to be more intentional about making this more affirming message.
Yes.
But it does talk about, when I read this is just on page, well, this is in the introduction, when we are self-objectifying, okay, so of course we know we're going to get objectified. Our identities are split in two, the one living her life and the one watching and judging her. And isn't it true that don't you feel pretty good inside the life, the one you're living your life most of the time?
When you're living your life.
I do. I'm just good. Like, I'm dipping Oreos and eating them. Yeah. I'm just like putting on this lacy shirt, and the one living my life is pretty, most of the time, realize this is a blessing. This is super lucky. I'm pretty good a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And it's really, the only bad part is the person watching and judging me, the me that does that.
Yeah.
Seeing in the mirror and then like, oh, looking and oh, what size am I? Or oh, look at those people. Oh, well, you don't do that. And then that's, so you could.
That we're aware of our own
why does that one carry
identity.
more weight? That one shouldn't carry more weight.
Yeah.
But it carries more weight. Like, why couldn't just the one living in my body be the one that matters?
Yeah. When we get constant
that
reminders.
I think, and I had never really, again, had that articulated where I was like, that's right. Like there is too, from the inside, I feel mostly, I mean, we'll have an episode on depression and anxiety another time. Yeah.
That's
but
different.
For the most part, I feel good inside here.
Yeah.
But then it's like when people see me or when I see myself, that what if no one ever saw you?
Right.
What if you could go swimming in the dark? It would be 100% different for me.
Different experience.
If I were alone and in the dark. I'm just realizing that now. That's sad.
That is sad.
But like, I don't really...
like what you would think of and what you wouldn't.
Yeah, and I don't think swimming seems fun because I don't want to put on a swimming suit. I hate all of that.
Yeah.
But actually just
cold,
like
there's a lot of
floating in
steps.
water with like no one seeing me, that seems totally different than having people see me.
So it's the idea of being seen.
Yeah. She talks about that too. Like she didn't want to go water skiing because she didn't want people to see her in a swimming suit. I totally relate to that. I'm
every
also just
woman
like so
does.
self-conscious about it. It's not even just weight. It's, you know, like if you like hairy legs and not tan and all of that stuff.
Stretch marks.
Stretch marks. I mean, there's a million things. Bad posture, you know, whatever.
Oh, I didn't think of that.
Oh, let me give you some more issues. Anyway, but if you were just alone in a swimming pool and no one was going to see you get in or out, that would be that would be awesome.
And it's that's sort of
too bad
gaze. And it's
ruined
not just
by the gaze. The gaze ruins it.
It ruins it. Mm-hmm. I love what they say. Learning to see more in the world, this is on page 32, allowed us to see more in our own body shame. Mm-hmm. What caused it, who benefits from us feeling it, and how common it is, regardless of how we look. Mm-hmm. And then I love how they tell stories of like, you know, and I will look at pictures of me in high school and I remember how I felt. Like I didn't want to put on a bathing suit. I didn't, I remember there was this guy in high school and he was having a swim party and he's like, girls aren't invited over to my house unless you wear a bikini. And I was like, well then no way.
Yeah.
And I just, first of all, gross.
Yeah.
Second
there's
of
a lot
all,
going on in that, but
why would I feel that way? Like, obviously I wouldn't just do that for, for many reasons, but it just, that insecurity of how I felt when I didn't have any stretch marks. Like, I mean, things like that made me pause and think of how common it is just to as your body changes for you to just pick something different.
Yeah, that's the
like
thing. It's not related
it's
to
not
anything real because
it's
you
not like
would've-
you're the real you because who is that?
You're just always going to feel.
You're always going to change.
And this is what people say. This is
Then negative
what
feelings.
thin people say.
Yeah.
That they, even when they reach their weight or their dream weight, it's a mental problem. It's inside.
No, it is.
It's
I
not
think
like,
I told you this
I
like
look
one
great,
time.
so I'm not going to have these issues anymore.
I got down to my ideal size, and I remember looking in the mirror and thinking, oh, this still bothers me. This still does. And instead of like getting down on myself because I felt so good, I remember thinking, oh, then I'm not going to worry about this anymore because this isn't anything that I can change.
Yeah.
This is just a thing about my genes or what's happened to me. And it was almost like permission. I gave myself permission to be like, oh, this isn't a weight thing. So don't worry about it.
I have felt myself letting go of some of those things.
I just let go. I was like, oh, this is...
I wish I could have let go earlier.
I wish I could have let go earlier too.
I only really let go out of desperation when it's like, well, I for sure cannot do anything about this.
Right? Yeah.
But it still feels good to let it go. And the one thing that I loved at the very end of the chapter, 39.
Or page 39, you mean?
Yeah, page 39. I love thinking about your body is your home.
Yes.
Your ultimate comfort, your respite. Yours and no one else's. I think that seems so cozy. And again, it does everything it needs to be. It houses me. I'm in here. I'm this soul. I'm an intellect. I live in here. I love thinking of it like that.
Yeah.
It's just getting a glimpse in the mirror in a swimming suit ruins it.
But pushing that
But
aside.
I'm not gonna think that way because this is so fun to think of it like that.
Oh, it is.
And I do whatever I want.
And I just wish that, like, I think it could be so more bonding if we talked about that instead of like all the things we hate about our bodies or our insecurities, as if that's the connection of, isn't it so great just to be able to do what you want to do?
Yeah,
and it's live in your body and have these ideas.
It's kind of mean. I'm kind of mean to my body. Like, it's kind of mean to think of my body as like ugly or overweight or something. Like it's just, I'm just here inside of it. Like it's fine. It does what I want. I love thinking of it like that.
I do too. It's our home.
I
love it. It's nice and cozy.
Inside,
That's a really
I'm
great.
inside of. Yeah.
And just at the very end of that, just of the part that you read about it being home too, like you come home with, when you feel that way, you come home with, they call it more power and purpose.
Yeah, it can be more,
Yeah.
it's like more nourishing, more nurturing. It's just, it's good. I'm going to try to think of that more often.
Me too.
Because that is a thought about my body that I feel good about, that I enjoy thinking about it. Otherwise, the only way I've really dealt with this is just like, don't think about it.
Yeah, don't
That's
think
one
about it.
strategy. Don't
That's
worry
one
about
strategy.
it. Don't dwell on it.
But that doesn't
it's
last.
good to do that to
Sure.
some extent. But yeah, that's not really solving anything. Like, what's a positive thought to replace a negative one? It's like me inside here just like steering this body around. Like, that's just like sort of fun to think about.
It is.
And I've only ever dealt with this by just like, I'm just not going to worry about it. Yes, I could probably eat healthier and exercise more and have more defined musculature. I'm just not going to think about that.
Just don't think about
I'm not going to worry about it. And that's okay, but it's
That's
really
okay,
just,
but it is inspiring, I think, especially from the limited, but what I know of Dr. Lindsay and Dr. Lexie Kite, that after all of this research and writing this and setting it all up, to knowing that they really do feel at home in their bodies and that they have like a great power and purpose makes me want to sort of lean into what they have to say, because I know that they're changing the world for the better. They're actually doing it.
Yeah, they really are.
And the research inspired them to do that, and that they want to help other people do that. I don't know, is really, it makes me want to
I can't wait
really
to wait
lean
to
more
read.
into the book.
It's like we're laying the groundwork.
Yeah.
We're relating to all these issues, of course. It's like, it's not that hard to remember how self-conscious you feel a lot of the time.
You don't have to be reminded of that part.
You don't have to remind me, but starting to kind of reframe your thinking a little bit. I really like the introduction. And then there's like that thing in the first chapter about imagining yourself in this sea of, and I was like, look, Lindsay and Lexie, you know I hate wearing a swimming suit. Why are you should? They're like,
and they know.
They're putting you in a
They're putting you
they're putting you
for
in the
a
water
reason.
right then. So, so I'm ready for this. I'm ready to solve this problem and have some resiliency strategies, which they are going to give us. I did look ahead at some of it, so I'm kind of excited.
cheater.
I didn't read, I just skimmed. So I mean, it seems awesome. And this all just reminds me of the Frog and Toad, my favorite Frog and Toad story.
Oh, yeah.
Where Frog is the cool one, and Toad is the one that's like me, and they are going to go swimming with all these animals, and Toad wears that swimming suit.
Oh, yeah.
And he doesn't want anyone to see it, and it's like this old-fashioned striped swimming suit. I remember this when I was little, relating to it so much. And he won't come out because he doesn't want anyone to see. But he is drawing more attention to himself, and everyone stays and waits. And then he gets out, and they all laugh at him, and it is terrible. So,
And that's what reminds you of.
that's how I feel.
And that's how we're starting.
And so, yes,
And so you know that this book is for you.
I know it's for me.
And for me.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that's chapter 1 and the end of our chapter 1 on our second episode. And so, hey, we know that you're reading along More Than a Body. We would love your questions. So coming up, if you have questions about body image, body positivity, neutrality, anything, send us your questions and we'll talk about it on the book club. Next week, we have part 1 of chapter 2.